So politically, we've talked about a couple things. We've talked about taxes, and it seems like taxes are going to go our way. We've talked about tariffs. It could go a lot of different ways, but there's ways to spin it depending on which direction it goes that it could be helpful to us. The one thing that we really haven't talked about and is a major decade-long issue in the industry is workforce. And one of the things that I'm concerned about when we talk about the election and politics is immigration, because immigration, especially being in the Southeast, that affects my workforce. What do you guys think is going to happen with that?
Go ahead.
Well, when you talk about workforce, I think what you're talking about the single biggest headwind to the industry. And I think that applies to construction, I think, which our customers, contractors, I think that, and then kind of as that rolls downhill, that impacts everybody who is supplying the construction industry. And, so for all of us, I think that workforce has been an ongoing issue, a much talked about issue for the rental industry. I think that we're seeing shortages, for contractors. We're seeing shortages in construction, which limits the downhill demand of equipment.
Right. And in that same vein, though, don't you think a change in immigration policy that potentially mass deportation could cause a problem for those contractors who depend on that labor force?
I think it not only causes a problem, I think it makes the issue that we're already having worse, because I think it's already a challenge for the industry and for a lot of us. And so, to your point, Josh, I think that could just kind of further exacerbate the issue that we already
the same issue.
have.
What do you think, Elliott?
I don't know if they can even pull off a mass exportation, deportation, cleanup, whatever you want to call it. I think that the border wall is probably going to go back into effect. It did not get completed. I think Trump's going to be pretty set on doing that. I think the overall effect, I don't know. I mean, I assume that a lot of contractors hire, quote, illegal aliens to do some of the labor. But I actually think that a lot of it is people. I mean, my wife came to this country. She got her citizenship. And I think that a lot of it, just because of the way that it's regulated from the government, I think a lot of the Hispanic contractors are not illegal aliens. I think that they got in here legally and they did it right. I think that hopefully we have more people that file for citizenship and do it the right way, and that companies can hire those, and that it's a labor force that will help us going forward. I don't think they're going to be doing a mass deportation. I think if they did do a mass deportation, I think it will not necessarily be the people that are working in construction. Because if you hired somebody at Northside Rentals and you said, hey, I want to bring somebody in, even if their primary language is Spanish, you still have to verify that they're paying taxes on it. Mm-hmm. And that verification goes through everybody. So I don't think there's a lot of companies that are hiring too many people that are completely illegal aliens.
Yep.
Do I believe it's a percentage? Absolutely. I know there's companies out there that are doing it. I just don't know to what effect. I think that the mass deportation, I don't even know how you'd pull that off.
I don't either. I would say
you're just going to drive around. Who's not supposed to be here?
I would say in the Southeast, though, we don't have anybody who doesn't go through the full process and isn't a legal worker. And I think that for the most part, the rental industry is there. I am not confident that the construction industry, especially here in the Southeast, isn't using a lot of migrant labor like that. And
absolutely.
That's a lot of labor pool in a labor pool that is already distressed. Is my concern. Mm-hmm. And we don't need more distress on that labor pool, because then it's going to start to pull from our labor pool. Now, some of the positives that I've heard from some people is that the incoming president does understand that. And as politicians do, and we've talked about before, we take an extreme opinion going into an election, and then we get more thoughtful when we actually implement things.
That's right.
He has hotels, restaurants. That
100%.
is an industry that understands labor pools and hospitality. So there's maybe some understanding there. The other thing that I have to wonder, and I'm always looking for silver lining in things, is let's say that the construction laborer isn't as much available and that they are hurting and that our customers are having trouble completing jobs. What does that mean they need more of? Efficiency. And what does that mean they need more of? Equipment. There's a reason that in a lot of lower income countries in the world that rental isn't as popular. And it's because I can throw 10 shovels at that pit. I don't need to throw an excavator at it. It's cheap to throw 10 shovels at it. So as long as I can mitigate the impact on my staff, and hopefully it's not too impactful on my customers, I don't want it to be a hard time, but maybe I can help them with some additional efficiency. Maybe you need a better excavator, or you need more rental equipment. Maybe there is a silver lining in that. So I'm hoping it's kind of, as you said, moderated a bit. And then if it is moderated, maybe there's some ways that it ends up being a net neutral or maybe even a net positive for rental. But it doesn't solve what you kind of brought up earlier, which is the longer term, bigger issue of the blue collar labor, mechanics, drivers, the average staff member, who I don't think are as impacted by some maybe immigration changes as we discussed earlier.
Right, because that, what you're talking about with immigration, that impacts, a segment of the workforce, but, there is a larger workforce shift that, is really already in motion, right?
That's right.
And I think that is no secret to anyone in the rental industry, construction industry. It's just for certain positions, especially, mechanical, technicians, mechanics, those, you look at some statistics and 25% of the workforce that's in that field, that trade, mechanic, technician, is 55 and older. So
25% is 55 or older.
25% is 55 or older. And, over the next 10 years, there's probably double the number of mechanics that are going to be, let's say, retiring. Let's say, 65 maybe is, a target retirement age. It varies. But over the next 10 years, you have twice as many people retiring as the current pipeline can fill. And so I think that is such a key issue for us as an industry. And there are different ways to address that. So, maybe it's not going to be one for one when it comes to people, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the equipment continues to evolve, and there's been a lot of talk about electrified equipment, battery powered equipment.
Needs less service techs.
You need less service techs. It's easier to maintain. Maybe there's not quite the same level of skill set that's required to do that. But I think that is certainly, from a workforce standpoint, a big issue. And I don't think it's just mechanics and technicians. I think as an industry,
everyone, you
have this history of a lot of people who grew up in the business or had fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers that started rental businesses and grew, in the second and third generations grew up in that. Well, I think that's changing a little bit here as well.
How so?
Well, I think, you look at maybe the third generation, maybe, kids coming into the workforce now. I call them kids. Young adults coming into the workforce now. Maybe where the previous generation wanted to carry on the tradition of the family business, maybe that's not the case with, maybe rental, maybe is not where they see their future. Now, I think there's a lot of reasons why they should look at rental as part of their future, but we need to make sure that we're highlighting that to.
I think that's a whole
generation coming into the workforce.
We should definitely talk about that because I work a lot with Caterpillar dealerships, and a lot of the Caterpillar dealerships are generational. I think that is a huge topic we want to get into. But I want to stay on the workforce
for
1 second.
let's not get too far off.
So on the
track.
workforce, I got a question for you, because obviously you were intimately involved with how you obtained and retained your workforce. Give somebody who's listening to this a piece of advice on where you found at Rental Max, hyper competitive market in Chicago, where you found people and how you retained people to compete.
So I think in terms of how we found people, a lot of our best people came through referrals, and that's something that we talked with our team about. Was, hey, who do you know that is in your circle? Think of, if everybody thought of one person, we had 125 people that worked for Rental Max. Dang. If you thought of one person that is maybe in a job or a career that isn't going anywhere, or they're not satisfied with, why not rental? Why not Rental Max? And we had a lot of people that were able to refer really high performing team members and people to us. That was one way, and it depended on the position.
Yeah.
We used online job boards, and I think that one thing that I'll say that I think is very underutilized right now is the ARA job portal. I think that the ARA job portal gives our members the ability to go out and find extremely qualified people just by going through one source, because we partner with other sites like Hire Veterans, like Career Builder, like Monster, other job boards that we're connected with, where if you post a job on the ARA job portal, you're reaching an audience much broader. And actually, just in the last week, I had a story from one of our member companies that has found a couple people directly through the job portal. Josh, I know that this is something that we've talked about is how is this job portal helping us find the right people for our businesses? And the feedback was, not only did they find qualified candidates, but much better quality candidates
I love hearing
for
that.
the open positions than they would find through kind of your normal
So completely
job search.
for my own piece of information, what percentage of ARA members are actually using the job board? Maybe Josh can answer that one as a...
I would say less than 5%.
You're kidding
That's
me.
probably a heavy guess.
Why do you think nobody uses it? Do they get it free as a service through the ARA?
So you get up to 5 free job postings.
A year?
Well, to get started. So
I posted a mechanic last week.
I was going to say, Josh, you're using it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is super underutilized. I think it's one of those things that, a lot of our members do a good job of getting people into the rental industry, and the rental industry is a strong industry. There's more rungs getting created on the ladder frequently. And so I think there are tailwinds supporting people staying in the industry and at a rental store. A lot of our members are small enough businesses, they're not hiring constantly. And because they're not hiring constantly, they're not great at it. And it's hard to be good at things you do rarely. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's, a noise problem. You don't even think about hiring until you need to hire. And then all of a sudden it's a 5-alarm fire. And then you missed the 100 emails that I know ARA sent to try and tell you about that. The podcast where we talked about it 4 times, the ARA show, all the times that it was talked about. It is hard. And there is no perfect or one solution. And let's be frank, it doesn't always work because the ARA can't create candidates where candidates don't exist. But it is a great tool to get you out there in front of a lot of places that, especially as a small company, you would have a hard time doing. Our larger members use it. There's a reason they all use it, because it works, because it gets them out there where it needs to be, and they have whole departments that handle those things. So we offer the same tool to our average member and our smaller companies. it's not top of mind until it's a problem is the way that I would see it.
Well, now I don't feel so bad that I didn't know about it. I'm like, well, if everybody's doing it and I don't know about it, I feel kind of, but since you mentioned only 5%, now I kind of understand. I guess as an industry, we need to do a better job letting people know that resource is out there.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a focus for us, is making sure that our members, ARA members, know about these tools that are available to them, because like Josh said, it's not a problem until it is. And when it is a problem, a lot of people don't know where to start, or
Absolutely.
they just go back to what they've done. And what I found at RentalMax is a lot of the call them legacy channels to find people are drying up.
Absolutely.
And so I think you got to find a different way to to go out and find the next generation of the workforce.
Believe it or not, though, this is not an area where I'm pessimistic. I'm actually pretty optimistic on repairs, maintenance, mechanics, that type of thing. I mean, in fact, when you told me 25%, that was actually sounded like good news. I mean, it's only 25%. I mean, 75% are under the age of 55, between, let's say, 20 and 55 or 25 and 55. That's not nearly as bad as I would have expected it to be. If you could have given me a number, that's a lot of people.
I agree with you, except for the fact that I don't think that schools, I don't think society makes rental as attractive as you should go be an attorney, you should go be an accountant.
Totally.
You should go do a white collar. I think rental is I've built a massive career, and I don't mean career in a money wise. I mean, I love this industry, and it's as where am I blue collar today? It's as blue collar as it gets. And I just think that we're not promoting it in the right way. I mean, last year when I was at the ARA show, they had the huge kickoff, which was I was born for this. Mm-hmm. And they put out all the shirts, and you were bringing around all the high school kids and trying to make it more attractive, because I don't think enough people are seeing the future of rental.
Sure.
I think the future of rental is just over the top. They're even proving that right now the age that's coming up is determining that they would rather rent than own. And the reason why is because the industry as a whole, and I'm just talking about global economy, the global economy goes through these massive swings. COVID, 6 months later, essential workers, everything's back the way it was. 2008, global financial collapse. Entire housing market absolutely done. It's not even 7-8 years later, and the housing market is right back the way it needs to. And companies are knowing they need to be more flexible. And because they need to be more flexible, they're turning towards rental rather than purchase. We saw it this past year with the numbers doing what they're doing. We just need to teach the youth, teach all these people coming into the workforce, the potential that rental has for actually building an amazing career.
Right. And I'm not saying that all those things aren't important, because I've certainly been on that soapbox in the past as well. I think we've got to do those things. It benefits the rental industry from both sides, whether that young person either likes the rental industry and feels comfortable being part of it, using it in the future, or they want to be part of it by being a staff member in it. For me, it's more of, I know the rental industry is so good. And if I can get somebody into the rental industry at a young age, I can probably keep them a long time if I'm a good company.
Amen.
I also see so much technology that is being used by our young folks that solves so many problems. And I'm going to come back to that one in a second. But it's a good business for them. It is a good career for them. It is something that people like to do, and there's going to be a segment of the population that likes to do that. Now, going back to the technology, though, it's one of the things that's been so exciting to me going back to being in rental myself. I'm actually on the front counter, and I'm seeing service technicians who are using ChatGPT to solve equipment problems. And it's good. And it's not even trained on equipment. Like, I remember when I first started in the industry, and I'm not mechanically inclined, I once filled a 1-ton roller's water tank with gas instead of the gas tank. I mean, it's not me.
That's epic.
It's not me. But I couldn't Google the results or the ways to solve for any of that. Like, I was pretty screwed. Our young people, we're a rental company. We don't run old equipment. We maintain equipment and then we sell it before it has problems. Now, maybe if I'm a dealer, that's a different world. But as a rental company, if I have great operations that maintain equipment and I can have great service technicians who know how to use current technology to help them diagnose and fix problems or know when to send it back to the dealer, the problem's not getting any worse. Yeah, we can make it better. Yes, we should. We want to attract people to the industry. But it's either staying the same or maybe even getting better from my perspective.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and I think certainly to be continued with when you talk about workforce and the issues that we'll continue to address.
Good topics.
I think a lot of reason to be optimistic as well.
Absolutely.
So. All right, so we're coming up on the end of another year. It's hard to believe. 2024 seemed to fly by.
Didn't it though?
Here we are. When we look back at 2024, what stands out to you? What were the headlines? What are the things that you're going to remember from the year that we're about to turn the calendar on?
I mean, for me, it was a year of transition. So that's certainly going to stand out for me. It's also the year that I started getting grumpy because of the weather again, because that was one of the nice things about working at the ARA is like the weather doesn't make you sad. But now it makes me sad again and maybe a little bit grumpy.
It's tough being a farmer, isn't it?
It is tough, I don't even watch the Weather Channel anymore. It hurts my feelings. But I think it was another good year for rental. I think that the industry continues to grow and be more professional and be more data-driven. I really need us to continue to do that next year. It's going to be really critical. Are we going to go back to a world where we're cowboys and give it away now?
Yes, thank you.
Or are we going to make data-driven decisions and smart business moves? Are we going to convince more contractors to rent versus buy? When interest rates start to drop, contractors get cheaper equipment, and I don't want them to buy. I want them to rent. That's one of the things that I liked about high interest rates. So are we going to be able to maintain this with contractors? I think so, but we've got to do it smart, and we've got to support our customers.
Amen. I think my biggest takeaway from the year, this year I got the opportunity to go down to the hurricane conference down in Florida. And as I was down there, I saw exactly what you said, John, which is that a lot of companies have their lanes. And I watched huge companies that were massively successful rental companies, and all they focused on was just temp power. They just did the hurricane business, and they supplied temp power to all these major companies, and they found their lane, and they were massively successful. I realized with spending time up at Rental Max, you did the exact same thing. If I learned anything this year, coming from two big fives, Ahern Equipment and United Rentals, both companies I've worked for, is they try to be everything to everyone. And this year was enlightening for me when I found somebody who specialized and absolutely dominated it. And it was an education for me. I treat myself as a coach and a trainer, but man, did I learn something this year.
Well, 2024 is almost behind us. And I think 2024 is also an important year because it marks the start of Shop Talk. Talk about
whoop, whoop.
starting a new legacy here. To be continued in 2025. What excites you most, Josh? Besides the weather, what excites you most about 2025?
It's only if it's sunny that it's going to excite me more. For 2025, we are so close to really valuable predictive technology using GPTs in rental to make difficult things simple. I think about a world where I type in something like, I need to sell $100,000 in assets. What should I sell? Or I need a mini skid on Wednesday, and it comes back to me and it says, well, you don't have one at your branch, but you have one at this branch on Wednesday, or you could upgrade them to that piece of equipment. If I can put a GPT on my data, it could happen today.
Wow.
It could happen today. I've already trained a GPT to follow a call recipe. You can actually talk to it, and then it can give you training and feedback. It just needs the information, because the problem that we have in the rental industry isn't that we don't have the data. There's a ton of reports that give me all the information that we just talked about. The hard part for rental people is what reports do I need to compare and run, and which screens do I need to go in to find that it's all there. It's there that it's in that branch, but not your branch. But you have to go to 7 screens to do that. Or it's there that your dollar utilization is here on this and that, your time utilization is here on this and that. It's just hard to find until you're really good at analyzing that data. And that is something that GPTs are really good at. And so I think we're real close to, if I can get my data in there, I can simplify a lot of what we do.
Talk about a game
awesome.
changer.
Right? Thanks for sharing that. Like, I would love to see that come to fruition, because so many of us need coaching on the analytics of the business and what moves to make. I see a ton of companies where they make bad moves. Yeah. I think for me, for 2025, I'll be a little bit selfish here. I don't know if you realize it, Josh, but the first time I spoke to you was at Con Expo.
It was.
In 2023.
Yep, and you gave me some pistachios.
I did, and I also ran into one of my very first clients, John, at that exact same event, who was sitting behind me at a training that you were running. And I will tell you right now, I wrote down on that day, because I'm a big goal guy, that one of my goals was to have the honor of speaking at the ARA. And to be able to do it this year, running your own business and working the way I work is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the opportunities the ARA gives me. So I am excited for the upcoming show. I'm excited for the upcoming opportunities. And I'm really excited to see where the future of rental ends up.
Love it.
I can't beat that. I mean, you know, when you look at, Elliott, what you've done in 2 years, and you know, a lot of transition, I think, for all three of us. I'm grateful to be here. That was
it has been a roller coaster
that was
for us.
Probably the last time we were all in the same room together.
Probably was. I'm not gonna lie.
Aside from maybe the ARA show, but that was a pretty big room that we were in last year. But that was you know, it's incredible.
How far? Think about it. 2 years. I mean, how far we've come.
Yeah. So a lot of big things in store for 2025.
What are you most excited about for 2025?
Well, you know, I'm really excited about this new opportunity, and I look at it as an opportunity to serve the industry. Because one thing that I'll say, one thing that I learned, you know, just in the matter of a couple weeks, was that I missed being in the rental industry when I wasn't doing it every day.
It's so much fun.
And I didn't I mean, trust me, I loved my time at Rental Max. I mean, and I you know, will always cherish that time that I had. But I maybe didn't expect that I would feel that way. You know, I thought maybe I would appreciate having a little bit of a break, but I'm not very good at being retired, which is probably a good thing, because I'm not.
You're a little young for retirement.
I'm not anywhere close to that. But no, I'm obviously really excited about kicking off the year in Las Vegas.
That's right.
About the Future of Equipment Rental event, and just the opportunity to work with the ARA team and ARA members to continue to find ways to bring value to the industry. And like what you talked about in terms of, you know, the power of what technology can bring to our businesses. I think that with some of the challenges that we face as an industry, I think that you know, that is what, when I look back a year from now, I hope to look back and say, hey, like we address those head on, and just like I think so many in the rental industry do, is we solve problems.
That's right.
You know,
True.
I don't think there's a more creative problem solver out there in the world than someone in the rental industry. So
that's right.
So that's what I'm excited about, and you know, and to seeing you guys in Las Vegas.
See you in Las Vegas.
We'll see you there.
Thanks, guys.